If you guys would like to buy coins, you can go to MMOXP.com. There will be a link in the description. They are the cheapest and safest option. You can use my code JFC at checkout for a 5% discount.
Well, guys, I'm just coming off of a rank 1 finish post-patch. Just played all 15 games in one sitting, and while it's fresh in my mind, I kind of want to give you a couple of tips, two mainly, that I really want to tell you guys about that I was seeing people doing or not doing in this game today, that people in the high elos were making. And if people in the high elos are making those mistakes, then you know people who are not there are definitely making those mistakes. So kind of wanted to get into that and also give my thoughts on the patch in general, because many creators right now are talking about it, obviously, and it's been generally very, very positive. So I want to give kind of my thoughts on that as well, now that I've played a full weekend league. And I'll show you guys the tactics I used and why I used them, and the players I used, by the way, as well, just because it's kind of a preface towards a video I'm going to make on my main channel in, like, you know, over the course of this week, actually, where I'm going to give like 50 tips. I'm going to make like a 25-minute long video of just strictly tips, which I might actually ask you guys about as well if you like that, or just want like the 3 or 4 or 5 most important ones. But they'll also be in that video too, so I kind of feel like at that point, why not just, you know, go all out and make a really long video. But okay, I'll show you my tactics on my team, as well as my team, by the way, and I'll talk about why I use players in certain places right now. I sold Gareth Bale already. I wanted to try him just because obviously his SBC is coming out in just like a day or two here, and I sold him already. Actually, I could have waited to sell him for more, I guess, but this card was very good, just one-footed. That does make it in like the high-end stuff, in the high-end champs, it does make him a bit more readable, and you kind of got to work around that. But anyway, to show you the tactics, we'll pretend Olise's in there, or pretend Bale's in there for Olise, because I can't show you with a concept player in there. Here is what the tactics looked like that I rocked. So inside forward on both, you got Holland on Poacher, Socrates Shadow Striker, deep line playmaker on Schlupp, Vieira's holding, and then 2 fullbacks on balance, not defend. But they're on fullback, so that means that they're going to be defensive. That's like their first goal, right? But I will say these tactics are probably not going to be like all-encompassing, one fits all at all, because this is a very attacking set. Actually, it's on high defensive approach as well. I recommend you use balanced here, 50 depth, honestly. And the reason I actually wouldn't recommend these tactics to you guys right now is because there's a mistake that people are making that we'll talk about in just a second, that is one of the biggest culprits as to why you probably wouldn't like this formation, if that makes sense. But all in all, the gameplay patch, I mean, it's just simply put, so far in 30-40 games I played, just better. I mean, the gameplay experience in total, more fluid. It's just more of like the older FIFAs that we liked so much, and not as much the rigid movement that I think we're used to seeing over the last few years. That's still there. There's still flaws with it, obviously, but in general, it's pretty crazy how much this has helped. And the biggest thing, I think, as to what's helped so much is just the general responsiveness is insanely better. It's kind of crazy just how more responsive dribbling feels, and the game feels in general. It makes you really wonder what was going on. I mean, like, what happened to where one patch can come out and the game is now much more responsive than it was? And the reason I know it's more responsive than it was is because now on high latency, I notice it. Like, if I'm on 50 ping, I'm noticing 50 compared to like 25. Whereas before, I feel like I personally wouldn't really, because I was so delayed anyway that 25 and 50 made no real significant difference. Now, if I was on a 3-bar connection during this FUT champs, I was like, damn, this now feels like the old FIFA. So you can tell that the responsiveness is better, which also makes you wonder, did they really want it to be this unresponsive? Like, was that EA's goal during these last like few months of gameplay? Because one patch can make it more like this. It just generates questions. Obviously, I'm happy about it, but trying to get to the root cause of like, why was the gameplay the way it was for all this time? It just makes you have more questions than answers at this point, which, okay, I mean, I'll take the gameplay being better. I think we all will, but it makes you think. It really does. Now, I will say, so there are a few flaws with the gameplay patch for sure. The biggest con still was just the tackles. I think that tacklebacks only got better at all with the card with Anticipate Plus. Other than that, like, they didn't get better. There's no difference at all in them. In fact, they could be slightly worse, which is kind of crazy. That this was just one weekend league sample size, keep in mind. But that's the biggest glaring flaw to me. Other than that, there's not that many issues like that are super pertinent. There's, you know, ones here and there that are like, the CPU will take weird angles to balls now. Even when you're on offense, the CPU takes weird angles. Sometimes the first touch can be a little more unresponsive than the rest. Like, there's flaws obviously in the game that are like embedded in there that you're going to notice, but the one that's glaring, the one that's obvious, is the tackle backs. And other than that, I mean, they really did help with most things. Honestly, you could argue that passing got so much better that it's a bad thing. I know that's kind of crazy to say that, but through balls now with almost every player are possible. Incisive pass is still still obviously like the best, but you could actually make a through ball. Like with this Holland card now, I was making like decent through balls with him. And that is just something that you obviously could not do before. And you could argue maybe that that's not something you want to see too much, but passing's way better. That's for sure. They definitely didn't lie about the patch notes this time, which is kind of nice. And you guys kind of know most of the pros by now. Like pace is pace. I mean, that it just works kind of how it's supposed to. My Holland now just got juiced, guys. This Holland card got so much better with this patch. Rapid plus on him. I have him on mostly lengthy, and I have a marksman on him, so he's 97 sprint speed, and he's the fastest guy in the game. So I don't know if I'll try him on 99 sprint speed to see if that helps, but he goes down in the accelerate type. I don't know if that makes a difference. Mostly lengthy was better pre-patch. I haven't tried anything else, but yeah, pace is definitely a thing. And this Gareth Bale that I had in here was extremely quick. The only problem, like I said, was the fact that he's more one-footed and he's kind of easy to read that way at times. But what his main attribute was the pace, and kind of what you buy him for is the pace, and that's what he had. So there's no doubt about that. He was insanely fast. But that's the thing that you guys noticed game one, right? You noticed that immediately. Now, for this formation itself here, incisive pass plus, I almost want that in every place I can get it. So that's why I have Socrates in this team. Socrates is like actually he's not the best. He really isn't. Look at the goals and assists. He has 37 assists and he has 8 goals. It shows you I don't really try and score with him very much, but he sure is assisting. I mean, that's a pretty hilarious goal to game ratio there. And same goes with Schlupp, right? I mean, Schlupp has actually 48 goals and he's got 87 assists, and he's in the deep lying playmaker role there. But yeah, 4-3-3 right now, it's very obvious how to play a 4-3-3. It's just spray through balls out, and players have pace now, so you can actually play that way, and it's not a bad way to play. Now, okay, let's get on to the first tip here. The first tip that means more than almost anything right now, literally anything at all, and I preach this a lot on pretty much all my tip videos, is that you cannot lose your head in this game right now, because you are going to concede goals and you can score them as well. So when you go down 2-0 in a game, you need to act like it's 0-0. There's nothing else that can be done. You can't go back and make it 1-0. Look at that Van Dijk mistake I made. Look, we're 8 minutes in, I'm 2-0 down, I'm playing like dog shit, and I'm like, okay, you could be saying, oh, it's gonna be one of those weekends, or you can actually just go out and just fucking play better. That's what you could do here. It didn't take long. We ended up scoring, I believe. Was it this one with Bale? No. When did we score? We scored pretty quickly, but the halftime score, yeah, the halftime score is 7-2. So like, didn't take long, right? And that's the main thing I want to talk about is when you go back and watch your games, if you are not locked in constantly, you are going to be shocked how many mistakes you actually make when it matters most. You'll be shocked that the amount of decisions that you make that you can tell are not good decisions, but you made them anyway because you were upset is shocking. And you need to play every moment like it's 0-0. And I know it's extremely hard to do, and you're going to be cheated out of shit a lot. So it's not like you're going to be sitting here saying, oh yeah, no, the game is perfect and EA's not fucking me in the ass sometimes, because they will be. EA will be fucking you in the ass quite often, actually, still. It's how FIFA works, right? But when you go down 1-0, you just have to try and play like it's 0-0. 2-0, it's the same thing. 3-0, it's the same thing. I think I came back with 3-0 once this weekend. That goal there was like, I slid right in there, someone didn't block it, right? It's fine, whatever. You move on, go next, and we end up, I think, you know, it's the same thing. It's 5-1/60th minute. So I know going down 1-0 isn't some crazy shit to overcome, obviously, but the point is, post-patch especially, I mean, it's really 3-0 you can come back from in 15 minutes. Like, you just have got to keep that mentality of like, okay, the other guy's probably letting his foot off the gas, right? If it's 3-0, that guy is not thinking to himself anything besides, hey, why won't this guy rage quit? And instead, you just keep playing, and all of a sudden it's 3-3, and then he's tilted because it was 3-0. Now it's 3-3, and then you're really in the driver's seat, right? So mentality is such an underrated factor of FIFA that I know is kind of like a corny tip. It's not like a corny tip, but it's more of a tip that you're like, what can I really do with it? You can do a lot with it, and that's, I always want to preach that on the channel. And the second tip here is, even though manual defending is more necessary now than it was, you don't have to do it every single time, and you still need to be smart with your player switching, when to switch to your defenders to get yourself out of position or back in position, right? Because look right here, I'm controlling Schlupp like most of the time. I switched to Vieira and Schlupp, and he actually breaks through my line, even though I didn't switch to my center backs. But still, that whole play there was actually the right process, because you still have a back four right here. If I went up with Van Dijk, missed the ball, this guy was a pretty good player, he just kind of works it around my Van Dijk, then I have 3 back and it's going to be mismatched. The numbers are bad somewhere, right? He's going to have an overload somewhere. Now I have this still back four here, and I can work with this, right? So he broke to the back line, but now we keep going on, and he still doesn't really know what exactly to do. He playing again, and at this point there's a through ball, and look, we're going to end up winning the ball back. So we didn't switch to our center backs or defenders here this whole possession, which was actually still the smart thing to do, even though he got the ball to this point, because we're still in our defensive shape. It's still important to hold that defensive shape and not switch to your defenders constantly, because then you're just giving them free goals. So it's more necessary to switch to your center backs than it was, but you still need to spam do it constantly. And let me play this next one at 0.5 speed for you. So right here, he's going to drive past this into R9, right? I still don't switch to my center backs here. I'm running back with Vieira the whole time. And then watch, once this next pass comes through with R9, right, gets to this point right here, then I'm like, okay, if we freeze frame it right here, when you're at this point, you're like, all right, I'm going to have to switch my center back here, right? You're just going to have to. There's nothing else you can do. So then we end up switching right there. Then I'm going to try and block this runoff, I believe, right? Yeah, block that runoff. Second man press, he just goes right into Vieira's feet. But I switched right here, and that fucked him up because he thought I'd run back with Vieira this whole time, because that's what I was doing right here. Watch, running back with Vieira. He's obviously not dumb. He's going to see me doing that. Still not switching. I only switch when it absolutely matters the most. Right there, have to switch. And now, you know, it's happening so fast that he's like, okay, he's gonna still be on Vieira, he's gonna run past me, I'll have him open. Well, turns out we switch to Konate, we block this runoff, and then Vieira's second man pressing directly into the passing lane, and we're supposed to get the ball back here, which we end up not, because this game, like I said, with tackle backs, interceptions and shit, that's where this game did its weak point. But the point is here, you do not need to switch to your back four all the time. You just need to do it slightly more often than before, because the AI defending is not as good, but you do need to know how to manually defend now more than you did before, which is a good thing in my opinion. But I would be looking for center backs with anticipate, or fullbacks, or wherever you can find them. That Kimmich that came out today has anticipate, and I think that like actually is slightly better with the tackle backs. But the rest of the stuff like Van de Veek and Mendy, like they didn't really seem like they were that much better with the tackle backs. But yeah, I think that's all I've got. Any questions you guys have, leave a comment down below. Thank you for being here on the second channel. Love you all. See you soon. Peace.